Hello everyone, welcome to FunEdu. Today we will be going to discuss few important chemistry questions along with the solutions in order to crack NSO, that is National Science Olympiad test. Before proceeding, as always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also do like and share the video. So here is the first question. So it says, in which of the following reaction is zinc hydroxide not behaving as a base? Okay, so you have four options given here, A, B, C, D. So you have to identify in which of the following reaction zinc hydroxide not behaving as a base. Okay, so what is zinc hydroxide? We know that zinc hydroxide is ZnOH whole 2. Okay, so this is your zinc hydroxide. Now this is a base, right? Why it is base? Because we know that base is a substance which ionizes as what? Zn2 plus OH minus. So base is a substance which furnishes OH minus ions in aqueous solution. That is, if you add this zinc hydroxide in aqueous solution, then it should dissociate or ionize as Zn2 plus 2OH minus. So this OH minus, that is hydroxide ion, indicate that it is a base. Okay, so you have to identify in which of the following reaction this is not acting as a base. Okay, this is actually a base, but where it is not acting as a base, that you have to identify. So let's see one by one. So in the first case, you can see zinc hydroxide, which is a base, reacts with 2HCl. Now this HCl, that is hydrochloric acid, is a acid, correct? So now this is a base and this is an acid. So you know that, right? Base plus acid. So it is a acid base reaction. So what are the product in case of acid base reaction? So acid base reaction produces salt and water. Okay, so as you can see here, zinc chloride is our salt and along with the water. So in this case, obviously zinc hydroxide is acting as a base itself. So that's why this is not the reaction that we are looking for. So we have to see this term you have to remember, not behaving as a base. So here it is behaving as a base. So this is not our reaction. So let's see the reaction B. So in B, you can see here zinc hydroxide reacts with sodium hydroxide. Now this sodium hydroxide is again a base, or you can also call it as a alkali, correct? So what is alkali? Alkali is the one which is water soluble, and it is also the one which produces only OH minus ions in the aqueous solution. Okay, nothing else, like ammonia. So ammonia is also base, but it does not produce OH minus ions, correct? But here sodium hydroxide is a base, or also it is an alkali, because alkali is the one which produces only OH minus ions in the aqueous solution as a negative ion. Okay, as a negative ion, remember. So now in this reaction, what happens? You can see that both are base, correct? Base plus base reaction. Okay, so here zinc hydroxide is a base and sodium hydroxide is a base, and you are getting one more product which is a form of salt. Okay, now in this case, what happens? Actually zinc hydroxide is not acting as a base. Okay, the first one, that is zinc hydroxide, is not acting as a base. There is no such reaction like base plus base. Okay, so though it is a base, but in this reaction it is not acting as a base. Instead it is acting as amphoteric hydroxide. Okay, so it is acting as what? Now here zinc hydroxide, instead of base, it is acting as amphoteric hydroxide. So what do you mean by this amphoteric term? You know that, right? Water is amphoteric. What does it mean? Water is amphoteric. It means water can react with both acid and base, correct? For example, if water reacts with hydrochloric acid, then water will behave as a base. Okay, so with hydrochloric acid, water behaves as a base. Suppose if you treat water with sodium hydroxide, then water behaves as a acid. Okay, so depending upon the substance with which you react the water, it will behave as base or acid. If you react with acid, it will react as a base. If you react with the base, it will act as a acid. Okay, so depending upon the medium, its nature will change. Okay, so that is called as amphoteric nature. So similarly here, sodium hydroxide will behave as amphoteric hydroxide. It means it can react with both acid and both base. Okay, so here it doesn't mean that the sodium hydroxide itself can act as acid or base. So in water it can act as acid or base, but here amphoteric hydroxide means this can react with an acid. Here see, in the first case you can see, right, it can react with HCl. So now this is amphoteric hydroxide. So here it can also be called as a base or also amphoteric hydroxide, but no need to call as amphoteric hydroxide because it is a simple acid base reaction. But in the second case it is acting as amphoteric hydroxide because it is reacting with one more base or alkali. Okay, so in this reaction obviously it is not behaving as a base, so this should be the answer, but still we'll look it into C and D also. So in C you can see, in option C, zinc hydroxide reacts with phosphoric acid H3PO4. Again it is an acid base reaction producing salt and water, so obviously here it is acting as base only. In the last reaction, that is zinc hydroxide reacts with ammonium sulfate. It is a salt, sulfate salt of ammonia, right, ammonical salt. Now here the products are salt, water along with ammonia, correct? So now this reaction is almost similar to acid base reaction, but here instead of acid, now the base will react with the ammonical salt. Okay, so here ammonium sulfate. So the product will be similar to acid base reaction, that is salt and water, but along with salt and water you will also have a gas, that is ammonia gas will be evolved in the reaction. So this particular reaction is useful in the production of ammonia gas. Okay, so wherever you need ammonia gas, this particular reaction can be used. Okay, so in this reaction also it is acting as a base only, so that's why this is not the correct answer. So the only correct answer that we are getting is B. So in this case zinc hydroxide is not acting as a base, instead it is acting as a amphoteric hydroxide, remember. Okay, so here you have the answer, you can see it is B, and even the solution is given. So if you want you can go through this. So let's move to the second question. So in the second question you can see the elements X, Y, Z forms covalent compounds of the formula X single bond, Y triple bond, Z. Okay, this is a compound. See, this is similar to your compound like for example water, H2O. So how you will write water? H2O. So H2O can be written as like this, right? So two lone pairs will be there, but however that is no need. So this is what? Water, correct? So simply I can write like suppose if you have carbon dioxide, this is CO2, carbon dioxide. So this structure, okay, this particular structure they have given here for XYZ. See, this XYZ is an imaginary element. They have not mentioned whether X is carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Okay, so these are imaginary elements XYZ. So they form the compounds of the formula X single bond, Y triple bond, Z. Okay, so here oxygen and hydrogen has single bond, carbon oxygen has double bond, similarly. Okay, so here you have single and triple bonds. So this is the structure, how the compound looks, and it's a covalent compound. What do you mean by covalent compound? So you have two types of compound. One is ionic compound and another one is your covalent compounds. Now ionic compounds are simple, so those compounds which produces ions, right? Or what are ionic bonds? Ionic bonds, so the bond that is formed due to the electrostatic attraction between the two oppositively charged ions. correct? That is called as ionic bond. So Na plus will attract the Cl minus, they'll form NaCl compound, right? So there exists a imaginary bond. Now you cannot write like this, okay? This bond you cannot write because this is not ionic bond, okay? So ionic bond should be written like this, NaCl. So we should know that it is Na plus Cl minus. So the two oppositively charged ions, they attract each other and they form a imaginary bond, that is called as ionic bond. It is also called electrovalent bond. Okay, both are same. So here this compound is a covalent bond. It means the bond is formed due to the sharing of electrons. So one electron from here, you can see one electron from hydrogen, one electron from oxygen will be shared. Similarly here, one electron from oxygen, one electron from hydrogen will be shared. Here one more is there. Okay, so this type of sharing, mutual sharing of electron, that results in what? Covalent bond. Mutual sharing of electron results in covalent bond, and electrostatic attraction results in the ionic bonds. Ionic bond is just an imaginary bond, that you should remember. That is a hypothetical bond. So now this compound, that is XYZ, forms covalent compound, that is bonds are due to mutual sharing of electrons. So what you need to find, which of the following shows possible electrostructures of the atoms XYZ. So you need to identify its electronic configuration. So what is the electronic configuration of X, Y, Z, that you need to identify. So let's see one by one. So instead of analyzing according to the option, that is A, B, C, D, I will explain according to the atoms that are present, X, Y, Z. Okay, so let's analyze for X. Okay, so now in the given formula, that is X single bond, Y triple bond, Z. So you can clearly say that X is linked to Y and there is no connection between X and Z, correct? So X is linked to Y only. There is no linkage or connection between X and Z. So no need to take Z now. So we are analyzing for X. So we need to consider the bonds or the atoms that are attached to the X. So it is only Y. Now X is attached to Y through single bond. Now we know that how this is this one bond is formed. It is formed due to mutual sharing of electrons. Always remember, one bond represents two electrons. Okay, so one from adjacent atoms, each from adjacent atoms. Okay, so similarly here, one electron will be from X and one electron from Y. Okay, so in the option you can see you have 1, 1, both are same. Okay, these two are same and these two are same now. So we can analyze 1, 1. So here you have 1. Suppose if X has configuration 1. Okay, so what happens if X has configuration 1? Then it will obviously share that one electron with Y. So the total number of electron after sharing will become how much? 2. So obviously 2 is a stable configuration because it is similar to the configuration of H2 gas, right? Hydrogen gas. So obviously it's a stable gas, that's why it is stable. Okay. So one more configuration is 2, 8, 7. So we need to see for 7 because this is completely filled shell, right? 2 and 8 is completely filled orbital. So no need to analyze for them. We have to see only the outer configuration because always bonds are formed by the electrons that are involved in the outer shell. Okay, only the outer shell electrons participate in bond formation, not the completely filled shells. Okay. Now suppose if X has 7 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So obviously it will share one of its electron with one of the electron of Y. So after sharing, the total number of electron in X will become how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Correct? 1 extra. Always remember 1 extra here. So 1 plus 1, 2. 1 plus 1, 2. Here in case 2, 2. Stable. Here 1 plus 1, 8. 1 plus 1, 8. So 8 is what? 8 is octet configuration. We know that octet configuration is a stable configuration. That's why for X, all these configuration are possible. That is A, B, C, D. All are possible for X. Okay, no problem. Then we'll see for Y. So in case of Y, you can see here 2, 4, 2, 4. Again, we need to analyze for only 2 cases. That is 2 and 4. So suppose Y has 2 electrons in the outermost shell. So first we'll see X. Y is connected to how many atoms? So we know that Y is connected to both X and Z. So Y is connected to X through a single bond. Y is connected to Z through a triple bond. So Y should have minimum how many electrons in order to form 4 bonds? See, you can see here, no, clearly how many number of bonds it will form. So Y forms clearly 4 bonds, correct? Y forms 4 bonds with X and Z. 1 bond with X, 3 bonds with Z. So total number of bonds formed by Y will be 4. So in order to form 4 bonds, obviously the minimum number of electrons that Y should have is 4. If it doesn't have 4 electrons in the outer shell, then how it can form 4 bonds? Correct. So obviously this option, that is A and C, are not going to work, because in the outer shell you can see this is inner completely filled S shell, so that you should not take. Outer shell you have 2 and here 2, so it has 2 means it can form only 2 bonds, correct? Then the other 2 bonds cannot be formed, so that's why this configuration is not possible for Y. Whereas in these 2 cases, that is B and D, you can see it has 4 electrons in the outer shell, so obviously it can share that 4 electrons with X and Z, forming a stable configuration, correct? So no need to analyze again, so that is simple one for Y. So after analyzing Y, you can clearly eliminate option A and C, because if Y is not satisfying these 2 configurations, so obviously the other atoms won't satisfy, correct? So that's why you can eliminate that. For Z, you can directly analyze B and D. Okay, so now Z is connected only to Y with the help of 3 bonds. It means Z should have minimum 3 electrons in the outer shell. So here obviously, okay, in both cases you have the required amount of electrons, that is 3 and 5. Okay, so we'll see one by one. Suppose if Z has 3 electrons, then what happens? Z will have 3 electrons, so it should combine with 3 more electrons of Y, forming a triple bond. So after forming triple bond, the total number of electrons will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and in one more case, Z has how many electrons? You can see here. Okay, 3 electrons, we have seen 5 electrons. Suppose if Z has 5 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 3 electrons should involve in bond formation, because it has to form triple bond, right? Triple bond. So after forming bond, the total number of electrons in Z will become how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. So which is stable? 6 is stable or 8 is stable? Obviously octet configuration is stable configuration, that's why this is the correct option. So this, that is the option D, is satisfied by X, Y and Z, that's why this is the correct answer. Okay, D should be the correct answer. So let's see. Okay, so here you can see D is the answer, and even the solution is given here, you can go through that. Okay, so let's move on to the third question. So in the third question, you can see the welding of railway tracks was done in the past with the aid of a chemical reaction known as the thermite reaction. Which of the following equation could represent the thermite reaction? So the 4 options are given below. So in order to solve this question, you need to know what is thermite reaction. So the thermite reaction is used to prevent the railway tracks from undergoing corrosion. Okay, so it is used to prevent railway tracks from corrosion. What is corrosion? The weathering of metals due to environmental condition, that is called as corrosion. For example, brownish coating on iron, greenish coating on copper and blackish coating on silver are due to corrosion. Okay, so in order to prevent corrosion, that is in order to prevent the railway tracks undergoing corrosion, we are using this particular reaction, that is called as thermite reaction. So we have to identify which of the following reaction actually represents this thermite reaction. So if you don't know thermite reaction, one logic is that we know that railway tracks are made up of iron, correct? So you need to look for that reaction where iron is involved. So that is C and D. So obviously it should not be A and B. Okay, so that is one point. And one more is you can also go for the reactivity series. So according to reactivity series also you can go, because here all reactions are nothing but displacement reaction, metal displacement reaction, that is highly reactive metal displaces low reactive metal from its solution. So here you can see these are all the native form of metals. correct? So obviously here the compound form of metals are present, so they should displace each other, correct? So in the first case obviously it is not possible, second case also not possible, third case also not possible if you see according to reactivity series. Okay, obviously the only possible way is D if you go through the reactivity series. Okay, so in the first case we have got C and D, and according to reactivity series we got only D. Okay, obviously the answer is D. I hope you know why it is D, because in railway tracks I already said we are using iron, correct? To weld the railway track we are going to use iron, so the product should be iron, okay, not the reactant. The product should be iron, so the only reaction where the product is iron is D, obviously. So now let's see why thermite reaction, or how thermite reaction actually happens. So now in the case of, actually the answer is D. Okay, so we'll discuss here only. So what happens in thermite reaction? The iron oxide reacts with aluminium. It's a standard reaction, okay, you should know. So iron oxide reacts with aluminium, forming aluminium oxide and iron. Now why they are not using, or they are not using free form of or native form of iron directly? Because we want to eliminate corrosion. Okay, so railway tracks, we know that they are more exposed to the environmental conditions, so obviously they will readily undergo corrosion. So in order to avoid this corrosion we use thermite reaction. So in thermite reaction we'll take a compound of, that is usually a oxide of iron, not a direct iron. So oxide of iron we'll take and we'll treat with aluminium, pure form of aluminium. So what happens, aluminium being more reactive than iron, so aluminium being more reactive than iron will displace iron from its oxide and it will form aluminium oxide. Now this aluminium oxide is a protective layer. Okay, it is a protective oxide layer. So the one useful way, or one of the use of this thermite reaction is that it produces aluminium oxide, which is a protective oxide layer, and also it produces iron. So we have got iron indirectly, not directly, but the use is that when you apply this in the damaged area of the railway track, okay, when you put this iron oxide along with the aluminium, so this area, damaged area, will be covered or filled with iron. Okay, after the reaction it will be filled with iron. Along with the iron, what happens here, aluminium oxide is formed. It is a protective oxide layer, as I said. So what it will do, it will come in the top and it will form a thick layer. Okay, it will form a protective thick layer. So due to this, what happens, iron will be protected beneath the layer. So above you will be having, aluminium oxide, and below you will be having iron. So what happens, this aluminium oxide will prevent this iron from coming in contact with the oxygen. Okay, so this reaction, what happens, this reaction results in rust, we know that, right? So obviously aluminium oxide will prevent this particular reaction. Okay, so as a result the railway tracks will be prevented from undergoing corrosion. Okay, that's why thermite reaction is very important. Okay, so this is a simple question, a direct question. You can just go through the solution, it is very easy. So next, the fourth question, as you can see here, in an accident in a school lab, a large sample of aqueous sodium hydroxide was spilled. Which substance, when added in excess, is not suitable for neutralizing the alkali spill as it leaves a corrosive liquid? Okay, so the first point you can see here is aqueous sodium hydroxide was spilled. So what is sodium hydroxide? NaOH. What is this? NaOH in aqueous medium gives Na++ OH minus. Obviously it is a base. Okay, sodium hydroxide is a base. Okay, so the substance that is spilled is what? Base. What kind of base? It is aqueous base, means diluted form of base. Okay, not a very strong base. Okay, so aqueous base was spilled on the floor. Okay, you have aqueous base. Which substance, when added in excess, is not suitable for neutralizing the alkali spill as it leaves a corrosive liquid? Okay, So out of these four options, which substance if you add will leave a corrosive liquid that you need to identify? Okay, so this question is very simple. If you look into the option carefully, you can easily find the answer. So I'll leave it as a homework. Just find the answer and write it in the comment box. So let's move on to the fifth question. A white solid X dissolves in water to give a solution that turns methyl orange yellow. The solution obtained reacts with dilute sulfuric acid to give a gas. What is X likely to be? Okay, so now you have a white solid, that is X. So X, which is a white solid, is dissolved in water. First it is dissolved in water to give a solution. Okay, nothing will happen, it will give a solution. Okay, to give a solution that turns methyl orange yellow. Now what is this methyl orange? It is a indicator. So what are indicators? We know that, right? Indicators are used to identify the nature of the solution, that is whether the solution is acid or base. Okay, nature of the solution, acidic or basic, that's what we can identify by using indicators, correct? And that too with the help of color change. Now what happens when you add this methyl orange to the X solution? So it will turn yellow. We know that. In which case actually it turns yellow? In case of basic solution, we know that, right? So methyl orange, which is an indicator, it turns yellow in basic solution. That's why X should be a base. So from the first point we came to know that X should be a base. Okay, X must be a base. Then the second point says the solution obtained reacts with the dilute sulfuric acid to give a gas. Okay, so whatever substance you have obtained that reacts with dilute sulfuric acid, that is an acid, correct? H2SO4, dilute sulfuric acid to give a gas. If it reacts, it gives a gas. Okay, so you need to identify what is this X is. So we have already came to know that X is a base. So what kind of base it is, that we have to identify. So let's see option one by one. So in the first option is calcium oxide, second sodium carbonate, third sodium hydroxide, fourth calcium carbonate. So for this you need to write the reaction one by one. So first one, calcium oxide, that is CaO. So in case of calcium oxide, that you should remember that whenever you add calcium oxide to water, it won't exist as calcium oxide itself. It will get converted into calcium hydroxide, CaOH. Why water? Because here X is dissolved in water. Remember, okay? So calcium oxide when added to water or dissolved in water, it will readily get converted into calcium hydroxide. Now this calcium hydroxide, which is a base, again no problem. So this calcium hydroxide on reacting with dilute sulfuric acid, H2SO4, forms calcium sulfate plus water, correct? 2H2O. So in this case you can see here calcium hydroxide, which is a base, on reacting with the acid it forms salt and water, because this is similar to your acid base reaction forming salt and water. Here no gas is formed or evolved during the reaction. That's why this cannot be our answer. Let's see B. B is sodium carbonate. Sodium carbonated Na2CO3. Now sodium carbonate, no need to write the reaction with water, because on dissolving in water it will form aqueous sodium carbonate itself. It won't get converted into something else. Okay, so this we can, if you want, you can write it as aqueous sodium carbonate on reacting with sulfuric acid. Now this will form sodium sulfate, sodium sulfate plus CO2 plus water. So it will form sodium sulfate, carbon dioxide, which is a gas, and water. So as we said, here you can see carbon dioxide gas is evolved. So it might be our answer, but still we have to see C and D also. So in C we can see sodium hydroxide. So option C is sodium hydroxide. So obviously I think you know what are the products if sodium hydroxide reacts with sulfuric acid, because it is nothing but acid base reaction. Obviously the product will be sodium sulfate and water, correct? Sodium sulfate and water, and in this case no gas will be evolved because it is simple acid base reaction giving salt and water. Obviously no gas. So obviously, so A and C is not our answer. So let's see D, that is calcium carbonate, CaCO3. So now calcium carbonate reacts with sulfuric acid forming calcium sulfate plus carbon dioxide gas plus water. So in this case also carbon dioxide gas will be evolved, because both you can see right here it is sodium carbonate, both are carbonate only. So whenever you add some carbonate, okay, metal carbonate into sulfuric acid, obviously it will form metal sulfate and carbon dioxide along with water, correct? So in both the cases carbon dioxide gas will be evolved because both are almost similar kind of reaction. So which is our answer then in both the, so obviously both B and D option is not given here, right? All are given separately. So obviously one should be the answer, whether either it is sodium carbonate or calcium carbonate. So which one is the correct answer? So if you see carefully, so here the ease with which carbon dioxide is evolved is more in case of sodium carbonate rather than in calcium carbonate, okay? Because sodium carbonate reacts with sulfuric acid very easily and it will produce carbon dioxide, or the liberation of carbon dioxide is very faster in case of sodium carbonate, whereas calcium carbonate reacts slowly with sulfuric acid liberating the carbon dioxide. Now this is because, first of all, there is one more point, that is calcium carbonate, its solubility in water is very less, okay? Its solubility in water is very less. So that's why it takes more time to dissolve in water, and hence the liberation of carbon dioxide will take more time. And even there is one more case where calcium carbonate on adding into water also forms calcium bicarbonate, okay? It is one more case, but no need to think about this one now. So you can simply say that calcium carbonate takes more time to dissolve in water, hence it takes more time to evolve the carbon dioxide, but the reaction is very faster in case of sodium carbonate, which can easily dissolve in water, and hence it easily reacts with sulfuric acid giving the carbon dioxide gas. That's why the evolution of gas is more easier in case of sodium carbonate. That's why this is our answer. So here you can see that the right answer is B, and even the solution and the reactions are given here. See, this should be down, okay? So that's all. Thank you for watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Bye bye.